Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are now with our main topic. We've just watched the profile on the Siwa Oasis, and this is our main topic this morning in the breakfast show. To shed more light on the Siwa Oasis, we have the pleasure to host this morning Mr. Sayyid Ali Taha, the historian and researcher. Good morning, Dr. Taha.
Good morning.
Well, Mr. Taha, let's have a look first on the how many oases are there in Egypt, and what are the names of oases, the Siwa oasis, or what other oases do we have in Egypt?
Yeah, we have whole the oasis of Egypt around what we call it the Western Desert or the Libyan Desert, as it is close to the Libyan-Egyptian borders. Yeah. Starting from Siwa to the northeast and further south, we can find Bahriya Oasis. Yes. There is another place we call it Farafara.
Yes.
We have Dakhla, Kharga.
Yeah.
And in the further south to Kharga, there is another place close to the Libyan borders. We call it Wadi el-Gelf, el-Kabir. Yeah. It's a very interesting place where they have found some reliefs and some paintings dated back to the, let's say, Stone Ages.
Yes.
About more than 15,000 years old. This is a very interesting place. It's not mentioned a lot. As you know, this area, it's
a small valley or something.
It is like a cave.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting place there. To the Eastern Desert, we have some oases, especially to that place we call it Wadi Elba, and further.
Or Elba Valley.
Yeah, Wadi is valley. Yeah, it's called like that. It's a very interesting place because there you can find some gazelles and some wild animals. It's in close to the road which lead you from Edfu to Safaga.
Yes.
Nearby to the Red Sea. In Sinai, we have a lot of oases as well, like that one, what we call it Ayun Musa. When you head to St. Catherine, you will find Wadi Firan, the valley of the mouses. And also there is a place between St. Catherine road leading you to Nueva, a place we call it Wadi Ghazala. From the name, it means the gazelles valley or the deer valley. We can consider some places like those protectorates as an oasis, like Ras Muhammad, because there is a lot of vegetation and a lot, especially the mangrove tree. Those oases in general, especially Siwa oasis, it has very special tradition and very special customs. They have their own tradition. They live like what we call it the Bedouin tradition, tribal tradition. They marry between themselves.
It's an urban oasis.
Yeah, it is. It is a long time because we actually the name oasis we don't know.
We have now
exactly.
photos from the Siwa oasis.
Yeah.
If you would like to comment on them.
Yeah, some of these scenes that we can see show one of the tombs, what we call it the high officials or the high dignitaries tombs, and that dated back to the 26th dynasty. Yeah. Before that, we don't have any remains from the old era. I mean, from the old and the Middle Kingdom, even from the New Kingdom. Also, we have that famous temple. We call it Ibis Temple or the Oracle Temple. This temple has a lot of stories.
Yes.
It's very interesting because it's related with Cambyses, the one who invaded Egypt during what we call it the 27th dynasty, about 600 years BCE.
Yes. It has a special atmosphere, as we can see.
Yeah.
Many films were shot there, and many songs. It's a unique place, actually, a unique oasis.
Yeah.
Can we say this? We have photos and videos from. If you would like to comment also.
Yeah, in Siwa, you can practice all the type of tourism.
Yes, we can see now the.
Yeah, the safari tourism.
Yes.
Also, we have the medical tourism.
Yeah.
Also, we have leisure tourism.
Yes.
We have culture tourism as well. So, a lot. If we are talking about culture tourism, this place show you something from the ancient Egyptian culture, like that temple I mentioned, the Oracle Temple, and that temple related with Cambyses and with Alexander the Great, because we knew that during the 27th dynasty, Cambyses wanted to invade the oasis, but he lost in the desert.
Yes.
With his army. And some of the stories and the legend says that he been lost because of what was done in the temple itself. It's
Yes.
kind like it's a will of God Amen,
Yeah.
or Amun as we call him in our language.
Yes. And there's graves there. You've told me about.
Yeah, that's of the
Very famous tombs.
regarding the ancient tombs, the
Yes.
tombs of the high dignitaries or the high officials, or let's call them the governors of oasis, because as you know, it was a central government in the capital, like
Yes.
in Luxor or in Memphis, and then in each province was a local governor.
Yeah.
This local governor, he had some, special case, especially with Siwa, because Siwa, it's a border governorate.
Yes.
That's why he had a special cases that he do the orders without consulting with
Yes.
the main central government, I mean
Yes.
with the vizier or with the pharaoh himself. Siwa, regarding the history, wasn't known as that time in ancient Egyptian time as we call it nowadays. Siwa was known as the palm district because there are a lot of palms and a lot of olives tree, and also was called by El Makrizi.
Medical tourism.
Yeah. El Makrizi, the Arab historian, he called the Siwa oasis Santarina.
Yes.
Not as we know nowadays with this. Actually, we don't know exactly from where or from which time exactly the name Siwa derived. Some of the historians, especially that famous historian and Egyptologist Ahmed Fakhri, he is a very famous one, talking about the discovery of the Red Pyramid in Dahshur, and he spent a lot of time in the oasis. Let's see, he visited Siwa more than 5 times. The last one was in 1972. And he wrote a very interesting book about Siwa.
Yes.
And also he wrote about the El Bahriya oasis. He was a man of desert. He was very, very interesting in the desert and in the culture. Because Siwa, it's a very interesting place to study the culture, especially if you are talking about the culture of the Bedouin or the tribal people, those who lives in their own tradition. So all the information that we know about Siwa, thanks to Dr. and Professor Ahmed Fakhri. God bless him. He died in 1975. Dr. Fakhri wrote a lot, not only about the history, about the tradition itself, and about the language. Even he showed some words in the Siwi language. And this language is a mix nowadays between Amazighi, the language common in this area, especially in Libya, Algeria, and Morocco, because those tribes, they came from those countries and they lived there because they've been looking for, vegetation and water, and that was very known there because as we know, there is some natural springs of water in Siwa, especially that hot water that you can use it in treating some disease.
So it's a touristic district.
It is full of touristic. I mean, without tourism, Siwa was nothing. It was just a tribal district, and will be nothing more than agriculture and some handcrafts.
Yes.
They are very, very specialized in this.
Would this go back to the role of the state in attracting tourism to this district, to the Siwa oasis?
Actually, there are a lot of tourism going to Siwa, but due what was going on with that pandemic nowadays, but even wasn't registered any case of this disease or this pandemic in Siwa.
Yes.
It's something very strange
Because
and
it's,
very interesting because of the weather.
Yes.
Weather there is very interesting,
Healthy.
even during the winter
Healthy
time.
weather.
Very healthy weather, not polluted with factories or with like any city.
Yes.
It's very primitive life. Even the hotels there or the motels, they are built out of some natural materials.
Yes.
I mean, was that tree leaves and with olives trunks and with
Yes, matching
especially
with the atmosphere there.
Yeah, it's what we call it eco hotels.
Yes.
We consider Siwa as a very great protectorate.
Yes. Why was Siwa called that name?
As I told you, we don't know exactly when that name was appeared, because one of the famous historians, Al-Makrizi, the Arabic historian, he called it Santarina, and this is nothing to do with the actual name. I think this was the name of one of the tribes who lived there during, let's say, 1500 or 1600 AD. They lived there, and the name common was that big family, and their name was very common in the area. That's why the whole area was called Siwa.
Yes. Siwa was known since the pharaonic era.
Yes, it was known, and it was known.
What would you say about Siwa during that era, the pharaonic era?
During the 26th dynasty especially. Before that, we knew that was a district called, or as we call it, Nom in the classic language, was called was Palm Dates district. This wow cut in hieroglyphics in the ancient Egyptian language, and that was mentioned in some texts from their New Kingdom, Kingdom 1500 BCE.
Yes.
Later on, we knew that King Nectanebus, the last king of the last dynasty, he built a temple there, and this temple was built up during the 26th dynasty, the old one. That temple was visited by Alexander the Great, and there is a nice story or a legend when Alexander visited this temple. He entered to the sanctuary or the place, the holy place of the temple, and the legend says that he talked to Ammon. Later on, Ammon, that god of the ancient Egyptian, was identified with the Greek god Zeus and became Ammon Zeus. When Alexander entered to the sanctuary, he talked to Ammon, and he gets the place of Ammon. And I think this was invented by the priests at that time. They wanted to legitimize the station or the succession of Alexander the Great to the Egyptian throne.
Yes.
And he was treated as king, and even they put him the Egyptian uniform and the Egyptian crown, and they called him Alexander, the son of Ammon Zeus. Yes. Ammon, the Egyptian one, and Zeus, the Greek one. He sent a letter to his mom or his mother, Olympias, and from this letter we knew that Alexander said literally, I am not the son of Philip, his father. He just like a biological father, but I am the son of Zeus, Ammon. Yes. And this when the ancient employed the religion and politics. It's very known in the whole history since the ancient time. Alexander visits this temple regarding to one of the advice that the priests of Memphis advised him. You want to legitimize or to be as a pure Egyptian, you have to visit this temple. That's why the temple was called the Temple of the Oracle, because when Cambyses during the 27th dynasty wanted to invade the Oasis, he lost with his army in the place what we call the quicksand. There is a quicksand place between Egypt and Libya there. A lot of historians have been looking about the treasury was Cambyses and what was done by Alexander, but it's still a big mystery and a big debate between the historians. We don't have a lot of evidence about this topic.
Yes.
From this time, Siwa was mentioned later, as I said, by Makrizi, the famous Arabic historian.
Yeah.
And later on, we knew about the history of Siwa during the First World War and during the Second World War. Because Siwa was occupied by the Libyan governor Senussi before the Second World War. And later on,
it's 50 kilometers from Libya.
from the Libyan borders, yeah.
Yes.
Close to one of the oases between Egypt and Libya. It's called Gharbub.
Yeah.
Gharbub, it's a small oasis to the south of Saloum area.
Yeah.
That was mentioned in the great book of that historian Ahmad Fakhri, that Senussi occupied Egypt. It's occupied Siwa, sorry, because Siwa is kind of isolated from the valley. We always concentrate on the Nile Valley, and those oases being isolated somehow. And they lived like their own tradition and their own customs. Even they didn't know about the law, the normal law that we apply here in the cities. They didn't know about that. They had their own law, their own tradition. Up till now, they didn't treat with this because they are families and they know each other. And if there is a problem, there is a great wise man, an old man, that he take care of all that matters, and he try to finish these problems before it start.
What about the story of the visit of Alexander the Great to the Siwa oasis?
Yeah. As I told you, the priests of Memphis advised Alexander to visit this place because the temple was so famous with the oracle, especially with God Ammon. God Ammon was very known in ancient Egyptian time, and Ptah was known in Memphis. So Alexander, to be accepted in Egypt, he had to do that. He had to visit this temple to show his respect to the ancient Egyptian cult and the ancient Egyptian religion. And he tried to tell the people, the Egyptian at that time, that I am not a foreigner.
Yes.
I am the son of Ammon. It's, I think, in my opinion, it's
And
kind
Ammon
of a political
stayed there.
matter. Ammon was in the sanctuary. You know that gods or divinity, deities in ancient Egyptian time, every one of them had his own emblem or his own symbol.
It may be because Amun Ra, that's why the oasis was named Siwa?
There is one of the theories talking about this topic, but Ammon Zeus, because of the identification between Ammon and Zeus, maybe this name derived from there. But the common theory that the name was a name of one of the tribes that they lived there.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time and for your valuable information about Siwa oasis. Thank you very much, Mr. Sayyid Ali Taha, the historian and researcher. Thank you very much for coming to us today.
Pleasure to me. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you now with my colleague Nermeen Abdurrahman.